Hey y'all, so for our second lecture, we're going to be talking about the elaboration likelihood model. And this model of communication, this persuasion model was created in the 1980s by Richard E. Petty and John T. Capapio. And that's about as close as I'm getting to that Italian. So today we're going to be talking about the centrally routed messages of ELM and the peripheral routed messages. So ELM views persuasion primarily as a cognitive event, meaning that the targets of persuasive messages uses mental processes of motivation and reasoning, or lack thereof, to accept or reject a persuasive message. According to the model, there are 4 types of people. There are gullible people who are easily influenced, skeptic, opinionated, and argumentative people who cannot be easily influenced, people with firm beliefs but with bad communication skills, and people who are leaders, who trust others as well as make others follow their thinking and ideas. So the more complex of the 2 paths is known as the central route. Centrally routed messages include a wealth of information, rational arguments, and evidence to support a particular conclusion. For example, during each election season, political hopefuls engage in speeches, debates, and roundtable discussions. Each message is filled with elaborated and presumably rational information regarding the candidate's viewpoints, platform, and political history. But there's a couple things that need to be met before the centrally routed messages can hit home. So one of them includes personal relevance and personal involvement. So really we have to feel like we're directly affected by the speech topic. If we were to start talking about taxes in Texas for business owners, I don't think that a lot of us in this class would be really interested in that. We have no relevance in our life for that and not a lot of personal involvement. So we're not engaged in the activity or the issue at hand. There's accountability, personal responsibility, and motivation. So accountability is whether or not the audience is going to be held accountable for the information after the fact. In this class, I do that with tests. I'm going to start doing it with questions for online participation, and we're going to have a final and have a paper that you were going to be responsible for. But why are you always signing on to this website? Well, it's motivation. And whether or not you choose to elaborate on what I'm saying here, whether or not you're going to choose to think about it and to analyze it. And finally, that personal responsibility. When people feel like they're going to be held responsible without a clear external accounting, but for your internal understanding of a message or the outcome, then you're more likely to critically think about what I'm saying. Sometimes people are motivated to essentially process information when it doesn't adhere to their own ideas. So sometimes we're looking for those flaws because we want to pull this apart, right? So we're not just listening and nodding our heads. We're going, all right, what is going on here and what information is incorrect? It's that cognitive stress, when that little line comes in between your eyes and you're thinking a little bit more harder than you would be if you're just watching television. That's that kind of need for cognition. You've got the rational evidence and the rational argument. Are they using good information? Is it logos? And we're going to talk about that when we get towards the behavior speech. And then finally, can they understand the message? Are you talking about star systems when talking to a 6-year-old? Are they going to be able to understand this at all? Do they have the structural support, the education to be able to understand where you're coming from? At the end, this is going to produce long-term change. This is always going to be the more powerful of the 2 different routes for the ELM. So for our peripheral routed messages, this is going to be that short-term change, and it's going to tend to be an emotional argument. So when we're talking about emotional arguments, um, we're talking about times that maybe we're not analyzing the message. We're not looking for those logical standpoints. We're tending to look for that kind of excitement in the message. And this is going to be that short-term change. So we've got a couple different ways that we look at this. We've got authority, commitment, contrast, liking, reciprocity, scarcity, and social proof. And again, this is going to lead into short-term change. But let's kind of break this down a little bit more. So we've got authority. And that's really the authority that we put in a person. So it could be the President of the United States. Does President Trump have a certain amount of authority to certain audiences? Absolutely he does, right? It's the perception of authority to convince the audience to accept the beliefs or the behaviors presented. If this was a picture of Bill Nye the Science Guy and he's talking about Sally's Cupcakes, we might, as an audience, put authority into that. Put a lot of that belief that they know what they're talking about, even though Bill Nye the Science Guy isn't really that type of authority. You've got commitment. Commitment is, well, your dedication to a product, a social cause, maybe a group, and it might be like me and my Apple obsession. That's the Apple 10. That's my current phone. That's the Apple 7. That's the one before that. That's the Apple 5 that I had before that. That's the Apple 4. And oh my gosh, yes, I had an Apple 1. It wasn't even called an Apple 1 at the time. It was just called, I think it was a iPhone 4G because it had 4 gigabytes of memory. That is how long I've been carrying around my Apple phone. What do you think the likelihood my next phone will be an Android? I'm going to say little to none. There's a certain amount of liking that is associated with the peripheral route. And, well, this could just be towards a person, towards a place, or an object. Liking simply means that the speaker is likable. Maybe they're charming. Maybe they're attractive. Maybe they're charismatic. This is a very old advertisement from, gosh, I want to say the 1999, 2000s. And it's going to feature one of your favorite movie stars.
It was called the greatest generation any society has ever produced. They were ordinary people who half a century ago did nothing less than help save the world. Millions served in uniform. Millions more served at home, and nearly 500,000 gave their lives. And yet there is no national memorial to honor their sacrifice. It is time to say thank you.
Call now and help build the National World War II Memorial.
That advertisement was from the early in the century. And I would say the two most likable people on the internet is probably Tom Hanks and Keanu Reeves. I think if either of them had put in this commercial, we'd have our World War II memorial, and we do. Reciprocity. So we tend to live in a give and take communities. When we're at the mall and somebody tries to give us a little sample of lotion, what do? No. Why? Because we understand that when we take something from somebody, we are almost in a unstated contractual relationship with them, that we're going to let them talk to us and try to sell us something else, right? We've got when somebody gives us a birthday present or even a present out of nowhere, what are our first thoughts? Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to give them something back. This tends to be because of that reciprocity. If you take notes from me today, I'll take notes from you on another day. Scarcity. Scarcity preys on our fear of missing out, FOMO, as some people call it. And the diamond industry probably is the perfect example of this idea of scarcity. If you have an opportunity to watch Explained on Netflix, Season 2, Episode 10 really breaks into the diamond industry and really talks about how they have created this idea of scarcity. And we really don't know how scarce these diamonds are. It also goes into manufacturing diamonds. And what really is the difference? I created a 15-point, 1 to 2 page paper that you can write up if you'd like to about this episode, and really look into scarcity and look into diamonds and this manufactured diamonds and what De Beers is doing about that and how they're trying to manipulate us with that. Finally, there's social proof. Well, everybody's doing it. When we look at Facebook, we always get that little, when we get a like or we get a heart on Instagram or whatever it is, we are looking for what other people are doing. When we get our grades back, what do a lot of times we do? Oh, what'd you get for this? How'd you do on that? Why? Because we're looking for that social proof to make sure that we are on the bandwagon, that we're part of the in crowd. And this is one of the reasons that Russian bots have been so powerful. Thousands and thousands of bots out there are liking and retweeting certain tweets. And all it does is add to this idea of social proof. Well, my idea can't be wrong because 250,000 people liked it. What exactly does that say? So, in summary, the elaboration likelihood model emphasizes the importance of knowing your audience. And in this case, unlike the social judgment method, receivers must be motivated and able to process objective, elaborated messages. When the audience is unmotivated or unable to process such messages, peripheral cues should be used. Now, the central route is going to be stronger of the two routes. If a message is to persuade using this route, it should be well grounded in the facts and attributes of the subject itself. These elements are more trustworthy in the eyes of the receiver and will be the basis for a convincing argument. As such, a message channeled through this route will result in long-lasting persuasion. There is a danger in attempting to employ the central route. If the subject's attributes are meaningful but the argument is weak, a boomerang effect will occur, resulting in a negative opinions of the subject and the message. In such a case, the communicator should use the peripheral route to persuade the receiver. When peripheral cues are present, a positive change in attitude can occur. This change is likely to be on those edges, though. For it to become more of a long-lasting message, it should be repeated over a period of time. Oh, look, repetition equals retention equals persuasion. The communicator's choice of routes is one to be made carefully, given the message content and the environment in which the message will be received. As we walk into these rhetorical mini criticisms that we're about to do, start thinking about these routes. How are they trying to convince you? Are they using social proof? Are they using liking? Or are they making sure that you have the logistics behind their products? These will be the questions to ask yourself for the next portion of the class.